In today's video, we're going to finish the metal work on the chopper by adding fenders. So I've got these two fenders that came off of another bike that got chopped up for one of the projects. The problem that I'm having here is that they're 2-inch tires, so the front fender is too wide and the back fender is too narrow. So today we'll be addressing that. So what I decided to try first, and actually it's working out pretty well, much to my surprise actually, is that I'm hand forming this fender over the tire to try to reduce the width, and I need to spend a little time making it a little bit more even, but the results that I'm getting are pretty good. Additionally, as I'm hand forming it, it's actually increasing the radius of the fender. So this was a fender off a 26-inch wheel, and this is a 29-inch wheel. So that's something that I was wanting anyway. So it actually worked really well. So I had this fender mounted here on the cross member, and it seems to be fitting pretty well. I guess the radius is slightly high, and the gap is a little bit bigger here, but I guess I have to choose between the width of the fender and the radius, and I'd rather have the width smaller and have that scooped up a little bit. But as this was a fender made for a 26-inch wheel, it doesn't quite reach the dropout here, so I'm going to have to extend this bar somewhat so that I can get it to reach. So after messing around with this fork for a little, trying to get my measurements, I discovered that actually those were kind of long enough. The supports here were long enough, so didn't need to extend them at all. It's getting all ready to weld in a little piece in there to make them long enough, and well, I'm glad now that I don't have to. So for my rear fender, this is also made for a 2-inch tire, but I needed to fit a 4-inch tire. So I'm expecting to have to, the plan is to cut this in half, right along here. And then I got this piece of Z channel from the Home Depot, and I'm going to cut the end of the Z, and this part here is about 2 inches wide. So the plan is cut that in half and then weld this piece in between, and hopefully I'll end up with something that's going to work. So I've got this piece tacked in, and boy, it didn't go so well, especially in the beginning. I just kept on blowing through over and over and over again. So I think I've got it figured out a little bit. Still blowing through a bit, but a lot better as I moved in this direction. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and stick this on the bike, and let's see what it looks like. I'm sure I'm going to have to trim a lot of this off anyway. Well, I don't have that much to trim off. I think that maybe I'd like the fender to come to about here, so just a little bit. Looks like I have my work cut out for me. I need to bend it a little bit. The radius is too small still, so but not too much. So I've got my fender welded back together here, and to say the least, this didn't go smoothly. So this metal is, I measured it at 35 thousandths. I was welding even down to 15 amps, which should be about half the current that I need, and still blowing through on a regular basis. And even though I tried to get everything butted up really well after sanding it, got lots of spots here where the welding didn't go well. So anyway, I'm not sure exactly how to proceed at this point. I'm not going to give up, but I'm not sure how I'm going to make this look, somewhat reasonable either. Well, I finally got all my holes plugged up, kind of sanded down the high spots on my welding. So I think that before I go any further with this, I want to kind of do some work on the inside. Got a lot of high spots here where it just kept on building up and building up and building up, trying to fill in the holes. So I like to kind of, it doesn't have to be perfect, but better than that. So after getting this welded up, I did want to get these welds ground down a little bit smoother. They didn't have to be perfect, but I did want them a little bit smoother. This is going to be pretty close to the tire, so it's not going to be very visible. But what I did is I went ahead and put a little bit of black spray paint in here, just to act as a guide coat, and kind of helped me stay on the welds as I was grinding. And obviously I did go off a little bit here and there, but I could see right away that I was off the weld, and I think it helped. So when I decided to weld this all together, I had it in my mind that this would come out a lot smoother and a lot flatter than it actually has. Clearly I'm going to have to do some filling on this, but whatever I do, I want it to be a lot less than, just like an 1/8 inch thick filler, whether I do solder or braze or plastic or whatever. So I'm not really great with a dolly and so forth, so I've been trying to bang it out by eye a little bit, but I'm trying again with the guide coat here, and then using a sanding block, try to see where my low spots are. And I have this big old piece of steel here, and I'm just kind of hitting it with a ball peen hammer, trying to flatten it out, and it's getting flatter. So, but by doing it this way, I can see where my low spots are, and I'm just setting it on here and kind of banging those out, and seeing if I can get this thing reasonable. I'm really kind of hoping to keep my filler down to just like pinhole type things, or anyway, not really thick and not really big, if possible. So I got this thing banged out pretty good. Surfaces on bigger scale are reasonably smooth, I think, anyway. And I went to try to fill, these little spots, which are very apparent now. I kind of tried to get everything sanded down a bit here. So, but I ran into some problems here. I didn't want to use body filler. I didn't want to use Bondo, because being a Fender, every time that it gets a bit of a twist or bend, I don't want like pieces of Bondo popping off. And I don't know that this is something that I can count on being unmoved for the life of the bike. So I started off with some silver solder, and I don't know if it shows up in the video, but you can see some of the browner areas here, and that's the silver solder. The trouble with the silver solder is that the metal has to get so hot to get that to flow that it was starting to move around quite a bit, which is exactly what I'm trying to get around here. So that didn't work out so well. So then I tried just some regular lead acid solder, but even with some pretty active flux, I wasn't really getting it to flow properly. I do have some areas here that have solder in them, but the problem, like I say, is that I really couldn't get it to flow. I guess that some of this metal is just too dirty. Maybe my flux isn't quite active enough. So back to the drawing board and trying to get this smoothed out. Well, I went ahead and filled in the little indentations and so forth with a thin bit of JB Weld, and I think it's come out okay. So I need to weld the support bracket on here, and then we'll get a coat of paint on it and see if I've done any good. So I've got my rear fender mounted on the bicycle, and that concludes the metal work on this project. So now the funny thing is I think that fender was just as much time and effort and work as just about everything else combined. But I wasn't going to let it get the better of me, so I went ahead and finished it. So I'm going to take the components off and get this bike painted, but I won't do a video on that. Plenty of bike painting videos, and I'm not specifically talented there. Anyway, thanks for watching my video. Have a great day.